So you guys, you probably know what that means. That's right, we sold the boat. Yeah, she's gone. As always, you know the game, we never have our boats for very long. We have to move on, and unfortunately we had to put her up for sale. And as always with good old boats, didn't take very long until she sold. But before we just cut you off like that, we would like to give you a full review of the boat, because we actually had her out under sale. We managed to get her out and see how she would perform and everything. So a full review about the Bianca 27 and including the layout, construction and the behavior under canvas. So yeah, it is very sad, but it's time to pull the rope. That is actually quite loud and it's cold, but good to know that they work, right? We have to travel by airplane and you're not allowed to bring those cylinders, so we figured we just have a little bit of fun with it and, see how that looks like. Look, that's pretty cool stuff here. You got the whistle and that should be easier to access. This is your tube. Can adjust the pressure and either way. You can blow into that, I think. And these are, by the way, self-inflating. They have those little acid tablets in there, but you can also simply just pull the rope. So we pulled the rope on the channel, sorry guys. Enjoy the review of the Bianca 27. Here we go. So before we dive right into it, a little disclaimer up front. This review about the Bianca 27 is based on our own experience with our own boat. Our Bianca 27 has been a rebuild project, and it has been the most extensive and expensive rebuild project that we have undertaken so far. It does not reflect necessarily all the other Bianca 27s out there. I know there's an active following, there's a proud owner fleet out there. They still cruise and race their boats, and some of them have them outfitted and kept them in ship shape like nobody's business. So please bear in mind when we review this boat here that this is all based on our own experience. And we will talk about the basic specifications, design features of the boat, as well as the construction, quality, and some other things that we learned along the way. And this is really just brutally honest, the things that we liked, the things that we did not like so much about it. And I hope it's okay if we share all of that with you. And please, as always, leave comments, leave your own opinions about it. If you also own a Bianca 27 and you can contribute to this, don't be shy. We are super curious to hear about your own experience and what you have learned about the boat, and we would greatly appreciate if you share that with our viewers here down in the description box. So always please leave a comment, it's greatly appreciated. Well, okay then, let's get right to it. I figured we start out by talking about her general specifications, the hard data like the measurements and her resulting performance data, that we get a better idea about the design, what it can do, what it's not so great for, and then kind of tie that together with our own experience, what we have found out about the boat by that little bit of sailing that we had with her. Unfortunately, we definitely rebuilt the boat way longer time than we actually had fun with her and sailed it. So nevertheless, after that, I'd like to give you a good impression about the accommodations down below, how she's laid out, as well as down below as on deck, and her rigging that she came with. And then wrapping it up by talking about her performance under engine, maneuverability in tight quarters like harbors and such, and then also obviously her behavior under canvas, how well she sails. So all of that you can expect here, and let's get to it and talk about her data first. Okay, let's have a look at the boat's overall design and drawings, as well as her specifications and the out of that resulting performance data. And as we are doing that, I would also like to highlight a few things here that speak to the craftsmanship and overall very high production quality of the boat. The Bianca 27 was designed and drawn out as a long keel with transom hung rudder, classical Scandinavian sailboat with a cutaway forefoot, and as you can see the rudder is directly attached here to the hull and to the keel, and there are 4 attachment points, so it makes it very strong, and the propeller is protected within between hull and rudder. So should you ever unintentionally ground the boat or catch a cable, you can take great comfort in that, knowing that the rudder as well as the propeller are relatively protected. Also, with her very generous overhangs, she's really great for anchoring in natural harbors. As you can see here, the bow is swept back quite a bit, and it also makes the boat sit relatively deep in the water and shortens the water line, so we'll get to that here in a moment. Also, with that long keel, she will track very well forward. She has a very balanced sail plan. By the way, it's a masthead sloop, so foresail goes all the way to the top of the mast. However, the drawback is she is not as maneuverable in tight quarters as a newer fin keel spade rudder design, obviously. And also in reverse, if you try to go backwards out of a slip or something, that can impose quite a challenge. You might have to use some deck lines to force her into the right direction, or give her some thrust, gain some momentum, and then go back to neutral to have some rudder authority, because otherwise she will not obey rudder command and will go rather in the direction of the prop walk. So it's a left turning prop with a MD1 Bravo Volvo engine in there, and so in reverse it will turn to the right to starboard, which means the prop walk will pull the vessel to starboard going backwards. The construction is fiberglass reinforced resin, typical polyester boat of the time. Whoa, that's a good thickness. Nice. She was built from 64 to 75, and something very interesting worth mentioning here that speaks to the high quality of the boat is that the deck core is Airex, which is an artificial rot-resistant material, and I think it's superior over balsa and certainly over marine plywood. So if there's water intrusion into the deck core, there will be most likely no massive rot going on, versus like what you would see in a balsa cord deck or marine plywood deck, which will sponge up really and gets really bad that way. So that problem doesn't really exist here with that Arex quad deck. They used cast iron for the ballast, and on older versions of the boat it has been bolted underneath the hull, and they also used some adhesive putty. On newer versions like ours, we had a 1974, they changed that and encapsulated the cast iron ballast. So if you open the bilge, instead of looking at keel bolts, you will see two massive lifting brackets which were used to lift the cast iron ballast into the hull, and then they massively glassed over and encapsulated everything. So this is great in my opinion. For one thing, you don't have to worry about keel bolts, but the drawback is if somebody, let's say, would have tried to install something into the bilge, like a bilge pump or so, and drilled through the fiberglass of the bilge into the ballast, there is a chance for water making its way into that encapsulated ballast. And that is not a good thing. You want to dry that out, seal it off properly, because that can cause, if it goes on over years, structural damage and basically, kind of delaminate the boat from inside out. So that is the big disadvantage of an encapsulated keel, especially when cast iron has been used. They had the boat in production, like I said, from 1964 to 75, and 604 hulls have been made by Bianca Yachts in Denmark, and the designer was Sven Åge Christensen, and he designed and built the Bianca 27 as a first polyester fiberglass production boat with his brother, and it's been a very successful design. Another really interesting thing that speaks about the high quality is a hull deck joint. So let's have a look at that real quick here too. The method that has been employed to bond the hull and the deck of the Bianca 27 together is probably one of the most strongest and leak-proof methods that there is, in my opinion. It is an inward-outward flange that has been chemically bonded with a very strong putty and then through-bolted with machine bolts every couple of inches, and then capped off with a cap rail on top to seal everything off properly. So I think that's really great. That's probably the highest production quality standard for a hull deck joint that there is, because it can take a lot of loads in all kinds of directions, and also does it come with the advantage that the teak cap rail is elevated from the actual deck level, which does not allow any standing water on this level to slowly infiltrate underneath, let's say, as a cap rail and then into the actual hull deck joint and create a leak there. So it's very leak proof and very strong. Now to her specifications and to the performance data here. So you can see the boat's length overall up here, and to the left we got imperial measurements, to the right metric. So, and that's the European boat. Let's talk metric here today. So length of the boat overall on deck here is 8 meter 25 centimeters total, and the length of the water line is only 6 meter 20, which is owed to the very generous overhangs as mentioned before. She sits on her keel, on her high keel, very high up there, and draws 1 meter 40 with that very massive long keel, and that disqualifies her, in my opinion, for a trailer sailor right there. She's sitting way too high on the trailer, as you can see here, but with her beam of only 8 feet or 2 meter 44 centimeters, you do not need a wide load permission in most countries to have her transported on public roads. So that's great if you ever wanted to have the boat moved by some transport company. So it hopefully brings the price down a little bit. Her sail area, standard wise, is a little shy of 30 square meters. So she displays quite a bit of canvas actually. And then her displacement is 3.25 metric tons, and out of that about 1.5 metric tons of keel ballast in cast iron. The sail area to displacement with that is not really that high, because the boat is relatively heavy, as a shorter water line, sits deep in the water and has a lot of wetted surface. It creates a lot of drag. That 30 square meters of sail area standard wise is not really super much. So you have to think about a light air sail plan, like big Spinnaker, oversized Genoa sail or something like that. But I mean, it comes with the advantage, obviously, that in heavier air you do not need to reef that early. So keep in mind the boat was designed for the North Sea and Baltic Sea mostly, where she's at home. So I think for those conditions out there, that's not bad at all. Ballast to displacement comes up to about 45% roughly. So she's on the stiffer end of the spectrum. So I expect her to sail around 15 to 25 degrees of heel. She should, I mean, ideally about 15 to 20, I think, not further than that. She wants to be sailed upright. Surprisingly, with that wine glass shape of the hull, she does not have a super awesome initial stability, meaning that she will heel relatively early, but then stiffen up at around 15 degrees, give or take, and that is where she lives. So that would be ideal. Sail the boat upright. That is what it should be. And then the displacement length, CS 380, is heavy, so it points against towards use intended for heavy seas and unruly seas out there, like the North Sea and Baltic Sea, and that also reflects in the rigging. The rigging on the boat is definitely oversized, it's very strong, and our Bianca had a double backstay and also a double forestay, and I'm not meaning a forestay and a baby stay. No, she had parallel running double forestays. So it was kind of something very interesting that I haven't seen before. Her comfort ratio with a short water line and how heavy she is and how deep she sits in the water is very high at 3103. So that is high for a boat of only 27 foot total length. That is really hard to get out of a design that small, so to speak. That is impressive. And also her capsize screening formula at 1.66 is super duper safe. Anything under 2 is usually good for use in deep blue water if you want to take the boat further out there. It's relatively safe. It means if the worst case scenario should ever happen and that rogue wave hits you and you actually capsize, she will come back up. And with a 1.66, this is super safe. I mean, unless she takes on a massive amount of water and basically sinks, she will righten herself and come back up. So you can take a lot of comfort in that 1.66 for the capsize screening formula. That's very, very safe. Let's have a look at the interior layout of the Bianca 27, which I think is pretty traditional. So we go this time around bow to stern. All the way forward you'll find a generous size anchor locker, which originally used to drain into the bilge. This has been changed so that it would drain basically sideways out of the hull with an overflow overboard. Moving further aft, there's a V-berth, which is a relatively snug fit, and underneath the V-berth in the forward part of the berth is the freshwater tank, which holds 16 gallons or 61 liters of fresh water, which I think is pretty generous for the size of the boat. The aft part of the V-berth offers ample storage in 2 drawers and 2 generous sized storage compartments. So this opens up the bathroom. You even got a little mirror in here. On the port side there's a hanging locker, and on starboard is the new toilet installation. With the privacy door of the head closed and the privacy curtain on the other side of the V-berth closed, you have basically an intermediate bathroom section, which is nice. Very smart use of space. Slide out sink above the toilet, because again, to starboard there is a hanging locker. So that's what they did here with those boats with the Bianca 27s that they have basically the sink sliding out above the toilet. Moving further aft in the boat, there is a salon area with a traditional layout having a starboard and portside settee. The backrest collapses further into the hull that it creates a sea berth on either side that is about 6 feet wide and 6.5, 7 feet long. However, the standard salon area table with those two folding leaves is kind of awkward, being there in the middle somewhat, and you have to either walk around it or over it. It seems to be always somewhat in the way. Also, as you can see here with that table or the galley furniture and the nav table here to starboard, did they not round off any corners on that interior furniture, which I think is very, very unfortunate. You get thrown around in the seaway quite a bit, and there's no shortage of opportunity to bump into some really pointy corners and hurt yourself really bad. And as much as I admire the interior woodwork for its craftsmanship, they use a lot of very precious teak wood, and it gives the boat a very yacht-like feel, and it's just super high quality and everything. I mean, it's so great and looks so awesome. So I think it's super unfortunate that they didn't round off those corners. It's just a good standard for interior furniture of a boat. Now, moving even further aft in the boat towards the companionway entrance, there's on either side of it the galley. So to starboard here, there's also a little navigation table that comes off and double serves as a cockpit table also. And behind that is the electrical panel of the boat with all the switches, and there's also a little card lamp. And then in the far left corner is the ice box, which is really generous size and drains unfortunately into the bilge, and there is a deep sink which will drain into one of the cockpit scuffers. On the opposite side of the companionway is a slide open cooking nook, and the slide open part rests on one of the shelf doors when you fold that down. And then in there is a gimbaled alcohol stove in our case, which is really nice. Behind that is even more storage for plates and cups, and then there's also a lower open part of that galley part where you can have your cutlery and silverware in there also. The headroom in the salon area is, to my best guessing, about 5'10" or 1.75 m. I'm 6 feet tall. Now, if you remove the steps in the companionway entrance there up the cockpit, you'll find the Volvo MD1 Bravo 10 horsepower diesel engine, which is a pretty massive chunk of iron in there and a relatively snug fit, in my opinion, for the Bianca 27. Fortunately, there is a floor panel in the cockpit that can be removed by unscrewing 4 screws, and then you have access from above to the engine as well as to the gearbox. Also, is this unfortunately the only way to get to the emergency shut-off valves, seacocks, ball valves, whatever you want to call them, for the cockpit scuffers and drains, as well as for the raw water engine intake. So you better be darn quick unscrewing that floor panel in case of something coming off down there. The cockpit is rather short, with the benches being about, I'm guessing, 5 foot long or so. So unless you are a relatively short person, you cannot lay down on them. And then there's also the traveler in the way, which makes for an overall relatively cramped cockpit. I really like the height of the bridge deck. I think that's a really great safety feature. And underneath is the engine control panel. Beneath the cockpit benches are generous size cockpit lockers, and then there's also this aft cockpit locker there underneath the tiller. So all three together allow for a pretty decent amount of storage space here on deck. The boat came standard with this boom furling system for the mainsail, which I'm not really a fan of. You have to remove the boom wang in order to use it. And also, once you start furling, you cannot use the outhaul anymore to tune the sail. So if you want to learn more about it, check out the previous episode. It's all about that. Because our diesel engine failed again out of desperation, we put an outboard bracket on with a 9.9 horsepower Yamaha 2-stroke. That wasn't ideal due to the negative transom. It's really difficult to use it, and the boat rides up too much in the waves, so the engine comes out flying all the time. She really needs her inboard diesel engine. Once we got that back, it was all not a problem anymore. She maneuvers well under that engine. She got 10 horsepower, so it's enough for harbor maneuvers. You got a little bit of current that might get tight, because again that boat has a lot of wetted surface, so it creates a lot of drag and a lot of resistance, so the current has enough meat, so to speak, to grab her, and for that a little bigger engine would have been better, I think. But in general she moves okay with her 10 horsepower, and we had a 2-blade prop on that, so it was all good. Maneuverability forward is good. She has a bigger turning radius, but I wonder if that had also something to do with that wind pilot that we have. It had a rudder in the water all the time that could not be removed, and I think that might have significantly added to a reduction in maneuverability of the boat. Going backwards, like I said, she goes mostly with a prop walk, so there's not much you can do about it, unless you use your docking lines to kind of force her into a direction where you want her to go, or you give her a good thrust, accelerate the boat, and go back to neutral and just use the momentum, let it drift, and then she might obey a rudder command. So that's also something that I found worked out okay. So under sails, she has in general a well-balanced sail plan. Once you got both sails up, it doesn't take much to trim the boat out. So a little old wind pilot gets the job done. The thing is, basically, don't do as I do as I say. You can see we are under main only, which is not good. Under mainsail only, the boat is very difficult to maneuver. She needs her foresail more than her mainsail in order to be somewhat in balance. Best works, I find, oversized genoas for the foresail, like a 130 or 150 even, and that really gets the boat going. And then she will be well balanced and sails actually quite nice. Unfortunately, we didn't have any footage of that. Like I said in the episode before, actually 2 episodes back, when we showed you our shakedown sail, the camera died when we had everything set up and whatnot, so you gotta take my word for it. The boat is in general well balanced, and if you have one sail up only, use a foresail over the mainsail. That works much better.
Characteristics reflect. You can tell the numbers are pretty accurate. The boat feels heavy. The boat feels extremely stable.
As I expected, according to her specifications, does she sail relatively stiff and upright, and tracks very, very well. So in my opinion, she makes for a fantastic little passage maker, and is also a boat that you can take into heavier weather. She has a very secure feel to it, and that long and heavy keel makes it also relatively easy to heave to with a boat if you have to, because you want to take a break or even as a storm tactic. So to sum it all up, I'd like to say that I personally think the Bianca 27 is a fantastic little cruising sailboat, a very stout boat, very capable. You can take it really far, and the production quality throughout the boat is really, really high, to very high standards. So if you are in the market for a cruiser on a budget, for the single-handed sailor or cruising couple, or maybe even a small family, definitely have the Bianca 27 on your shortlist. Alright you guys, so that shall be it for today's episode. This concludes our review of the Bianca 27. And although by all means not complete, I hope we gave you a good first impression of this boat and highlighted a few interesting things to know about it. If we have sparked your curiosity about it and you want to learn more about this boat, check out our Season 2 on our channel. The entire Season 2 is about the Bianca 27 only, so there's much more content about this boat. If you're on the market for a Bianca 27, I think you can scoop one up for 5 to 10 grand, and that buys you a really solid boat. I think there's a lot of bang for your buck. So please smash that like button. That helps us to mess with that YouTube algorithm. Share our video, subscribe to our channel, and please don't forget to click this little alarm bell icon so you will be notified whenever we release new content. One really great way of supporting our YouTube channel beyond YouTube itself would be if you head down to the description box. You see we have a link here to our homepage. Yes, we do have a homepage, and if you hit show more, there's also a link to our Patreon page, worldwildlife.org for the Vikita project, PayPal one-time donation, and you can see what type of music we have used in our video. So let's head over to our homepage real quick. And it has some background information and our content on there, and it also does have a shop. So one great way of supporting our channel would be that you head over and pick out a t-shirt that you like, and if you're not into that, you can also scroll all the way down, and then it has a link to our PayPal one-time donation or to Patreon, which is also, by the way, in the drop-down description box at YouTube. And that leads you over to our Patreon page. And what that is, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is basically a platform for creators where you can support a YouTube channel like us by picking a pledge level here, a tier level that gives you certain perks like early access to our videos and a few other things depending on how you want to step it up. And you can join the crew for as low as $2 as a deckhand here, and that is per creation. So if we don't create anything, you are not pledging anything. And if we, let's say, create 2 videos a month, you would pledge $4 that month to our channel. You can cancel that any time. There are no strings attached, and you can also set a monthly limit. So just want to let you guys know that we had that and that this is out there, and that's a really great way of supporting our YouTube channel, Sailing Good Old Boats. Thank you for checking it out.
Boat review. We have you can, I don't know, but I'm sleeping here. You can barely see anything, but we have some little curtains, handmade. You need talent for that. We even have a curtain here. You can barely see anything though. We have a little wardrobe. You can't see anything. Here's our dining table that we can. It's quite messy right now, but
Es ist vorbei. Das ist ja auch